Dan, and people came out in droves, flooding the hearing room. The crowd was so big that 2 additional rooms had to be opened for people to wait in that wanted to testify. Senate Bill 978 is sweeping amendments to Oregon gun control laws. It began as a request for Oregon State Police to study illegal gun sales. The bill calls for stricter controls on gun storage and untraceable weapons, like 3D printed guns. Among a laundry list of proposals, it calls for expanding gun-free zones and would make leaving firearms where kids can easily reach them a crime. The bill also requires gun owners to report the theft of a weapon within 72 hours. If they don't, and that gun is used in a crime, the owner is liable.
Just as important to wear a seatbelt or a helmet, it's critical that people keep their guns safely secured when not in use, particularly when children are in the home.
Through this bill and Amendment 1, you want to criminalize the exercise of natural rights by law-abiding citizens in their day-to-day activities, which are protected by the U.S. and Oregon constitutions.
False.
The proposed bill would also allow gun dealers to choose if they want to sell to people who are over 18 but under 21. And hospitals would be required to report to the Oregon Health Authority whenever they've got treated a gunshot wound. In the House this afternoon, a separate bill was heard requiring people convicted of domestic violence or named in protective orders to hand over their weapons to law enforcement. We've got a breakdown on the Senate bill that was heard today in this story on KGW.com. Back to you.